10, 9, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is Tim Staten with Tim Stating the Obvious. What is this podcast about? It's simple. You are entitled to great leadership everywhere you go, whether it's to church, whether it's to work, whether it's at your house, you are entitled to great leadership. And so in this podcast, we take leadership principles and theories and turn them into everyday relatable and usable advice. Hey, and welcome to this episode of Tim Stating the Obvious, where this is our first live episode. So everyone who joined the room, thank you for coming in and listening to this episode. It's our first live one, so we'll see how it goes. And in this topic, we're going to be talking about how last year it was really rough on a lot of different people. And this year, is a little bit different because the world's normalizing and we're getting back into the swing of things. And as leaders, we need to realize that we're going through some tough times, and that can be hard on people. And in this live session, we're going to discuss, even though it was difficult and uncomfortable, we're better off. Hey, and Will from the red carpet, thanks for coming in. So for everyone who's listening, Will is my barber. He's an excellent barber, but he's more than just a barber. He's a friend, right? So I met Will just a little bit over a year ago, and he's been cutting my hair since then. And today he actually shared with me a story that happened to him, I guess this last week or last 2 weeks. And, it resonates for, what this topic is really about. And it just happened to coincide, that we're just doing this live episode today. And he shared it before I even talked to him about it, about going live today. So, here's a couple things that we've learned before we get into that story. Here's a couple things that we've learned this past year. We have become more fearful and risk adverse in our culture and our society. And what I mean by that is, if someone comes in the workplace or they, your kid goes to school and they have a cough and they're sneezing, immediately, oh, it's COVID related, let's send them home. Well, maybe they got allergies. Maybe they just don't feel good. It's not COVID related, right? Could be, but we're so risk adverse that we'd rather send somebody away and isolate them just because they have a minor flaw or deficiency of a cough or a sneeze. And we're so fearful that, oh, we're going to spread this thing around. And that creates an isolationist mentality. So the other thing too, right? So schools got canceled recently this past year for a thunderstorm, right? So in all my years, I have never, ever heard of school getting canceled for kids for a thunderstorm. Maybe a snowstorm or two. If you live up north, like when I lived up near in northern New York, near Canada, like we'd get like 1 or 2 feet of snow a day and kids were still going to school, and then I grew up in the South. If they even talked about snow, the whole town would shut down. You couldn't buy bread, milk, or butter or peanut butter for like a week and a half because everyone just bought it out. But, a thunderstorm, I have never, ever heard of anything getting canceled for a thunderstorm. Also, we because we're so risk adverse, we create these policies that sound like they're making people feel safe, but they're really idiotic. And I'll point out the one at the airport, right? So as you're going to the airport, and if you've traveled recently, you can attest to this, right? So you're in the airport and you got to maintain 6 feet of separation between you and the person in front of you by the little footprints and lines on the airport to hand in your baggage. And yet you're only 4 feet from the person you're talking to who's weighing your bag, but you're wearing a face mask, so that's okay. Then you go through the security and you're 6 feet away. You're in the waiting area and seats are blocked off. They're 6 feet apart from each other. But yet you get on the plane and you sit 12 inches next to the person to you on the plane. And you're in a more air constricted place. But yet, we create these policies to make people feel safer, but yet they're idiotic because it doesn't really do anything other than make people feel safer. And because we're so risk adverse and fearful, we fall for these and we accept it. Now, I don't know why, but we do on there. So, the other thing that we've learned this past year is that people suffer in silence. And, this is where Will's story comes into play. He had a worker, and Will, please correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but he had a worker who was in a abusive relationship. And it came to the point where this person, when they came to work, they're coming with bruises and, and he gave advice on, hey, look, you probably should stop seeing this person. You should probably keep your distance. It's not safe for you. And then it got to the point where he was like, hey, look, I don't want to see this person that you're in a relationship with come to work. Okay. Because if you bring this drama to work, it's not good for the business and it's definitely not good for you. And you're not listening to the advice anyway. Well, then this worker got really upset and decided that they want to quit, which, in hindsight, looking at this, you've got two different points of views. You've got the point of view from the individual who is obviously, no matter what you say to anybody who's in an abusive relationship, until that person is ready to leave, they're going to continue to take whatever it is that they're taking because they don't feel the self-worth enough that they deserve better. So, I've had tons of friends who were in abusive relationships, and you know what? Bottom line is they're going to continue to take it until they decide they want to leave. And there's nothing you can do that's going to change their mind. There's no amount of advice that you can say that's going to make them change their mind. All you can do is be there for them and encourage them along the way, because they will suffer in silence because they don't want anybody else to know about it when it does get bad. Now you have the other side, the supervisor to employee relationship or boss to employee relationship, where you say, okay, you're creating an environment in the workplace that is unprofessional. You're now creating an environment in the workplace where if other people come in who are not normal clients of this place, they may feel some type of way about this and may not come back. And they may tell other people, hey, yo, when I went to this one place, I saw this and it was not okay. So I don't know if you want to go there or not, but, and that gets spread out around there. So, when you take a look at it all comes into the ability of, bottom line day is that if you work at a place, it is a business. And yes, we need to have empathy for people. And so there's a difference between empathy and sympathy, right? Sympathy is like you actually kind of feel what that other person's feeling and you put yourself there. Empathy is where you can see where that other person's coming from, but you don't feel what they feel. And you go, you know what? This may be really, really hard for you. This may be something difficult that you're going on. And I see that you're going on with it. But if they're not willing to meet you halfway, then sometimes it's better off if you do split ways. And it's hard, right? So as leaders, we invest into people because we want to see people thrive and succeed and get better. Why else would you, one, hire them? Because initially you hire them because, okay, yeah, they have something to offer the business. But two, as you get to know that person, you get to realize, okay, they may not be strong in some suits, but let me help build them up. Let me help get them better, because the better they are, the better our business is. And collectively we can be a better organization. So you start investing into this person. So as you invest into this person, you're really helping them get better. And then when someone at the end of the day goes, you know what? Yeah, I'm not okay with this. I'm leaving, just because they feel slighted in some way. You as a leader, you feel some type of way about that too, because you're a human, right? You have emotions. You empathize with that person and what they're going through. but yet you feel like, yo, I just invested so much time and effort into this person and they just walked away like it was no big deal. How is this okay? And unfortunately, sometimes that does happen. But the things that we go through and the hard times that we go through turn us into the people that we are today. There's nothing wrong with investing in people. And recently this past week, I'm reminded of another story where we went to Buffalo Wild Wings. So at my job, when somebody decides that it's no longer them for them to work there and they want to leave and they give their notice and we know that they're going to be leaving, we schedule a lunch and we celebrate with them that of their success. Like, hey, you know what? You've done everything you can do here. You need to move up and move on into better places, into better situations. So by having them move on, we're celebrating with them. Yeah, it's sad to see them go, but we're also celebrating their success. And while we were there at Buffalo Wild Wings, there was one waitress there for the entire restaurant, and she was actually like frazzled that the 30 of us were in there getting ready to eat, because she also had 5 or 6 other tables, and she was worried that she wasn't gonna do enough service and that we would get upset and all these other things that I viewed as kind of irrational. Like, why would you be upset? There's 30 of us. We came into your restaurant. We know there's one of you, and you think that we're going to get upset with you because you're not providing stellar service because you're one person for 45 other people to feed and get drinks and wait on. Um, so I pulled the waitress aside. I said, hey, look, whatever you're going through, I get it that you're stressed with work and everything else, but the good thing is you have a job. The other thing is we're not the type of people that are going to get upset because we have to wait. We know there's 30 of us and no one here is trying to get back to work anytime soon because we're taking this time to celebrate with this person who is moving on. And so it just dawned on me that, you never know what people are going through, and they do suffer in silence. And it's sad. It's sad that, people want to suffer in silence because either they feel like they can't reach out to other people, or generally people just don't care. People are just not telling them that they care enough or show signs that they care enough. And that affects the workplace, because a person who is mentally not at work and who is mentally somewhere else does that person no good, because now they're underperforming because they're thinking about other things and you know, they're just not there. Then it doesn't help the organization because other people have to cover down on the slack that person is underperforming on, and they get frustrated. And then it also creates a perception of that organization that they all underperform because people are covering down on other people's duties and responsibilities. So I think, if we learn to talk to people a little bit better, and if we learn to really reach out as leaders and empathize with people and realize that we're all human beings, we all go through things, and things are not as bad as they might seem in the moment, right? Some things are really bad. Don't get me wrong. Some things are horribly bad. But overall, Nietzsche said, if you don't know who Friedrich Nietzsche is, you should probably look him up. He's a great dude. He said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And, you know, COVID really kind of proved that this past year, right? So for a lot of people who got sick, they got better and they moved on. If you got the flu, you got sick, you got better, you moved on, right? So biology teaches us through the antibodies that fight off the infection or disease that, yeah, you got sick and it took you down for a little bit, but you actually now have a resistance to it long term. You had to suffer short term so you could get long term benefits out of it. So when you look at that, I would say that if you are suffering in silence, let somebody know. It helps lessen that burden, and you're going to be okay. Like, you're going to get through it, and you're going to come out on the other side, and you're going to be better off for it, because now you know your threshold. You know what you can go through. You know what you can tolerate. You know yourself a little bit better, and you know what puts you in that situation, and you know what, you could tell yourself, I recognize these signs and I'm heading down this path again. I'm not going to do that because it didn't feel good. I'm going to avoid this altogether because it wasn't okay for me. And then, Jerry Falwell, the late Jerry Falwell, said, your greatness is determined by what discourages you. So if you get discouraged super easy, you're not going to achieve anything, because every little road bump that comes in your way is going to prevent you from overcoming that hurdle, right? So it's amazing that, thinking back on a lot of the hard times that I had in my past, and I've gone through personally too. In the moment, it sucked. It was not pleasant. It was not something that I would wish upon anybody else. But now on the other side of that, looking back at it, it was like, it wasn't that bad. It could have been way worse. And I know what I like now. I know what put me in that situation, and I know what not to do to get back into that situation. I don't know what just happened there, other than my computer decided to do something crazy. So if you were listening, I'm sorry. But like I said, it's live. Never done it before, so some things are going to happen. That's okay. You also got to think about strength training too. For those who do know me, I like to lift weights. I don't really like to run because that is horrible for me. It doesn't feel good. Some people like to run. I like to lift weights. I feel better when I lift weights. But when you're putting your body under pressure and strain, and you're putting the weight on, you're getting the reps in, you're breaking down the muscle tissue and you're ripping it apart. Literally, you're ripping your muscle tissue apart so it could heal and grow back stronger. And when you run, right, you're exercising your lungs and your lungs capacity to expand and contract, and your circulatory system and your muscular system and your bone structure, and it all is taking a compounding stress, and all that together, makes you a healthier person. So even in nature that we were talking about, all the stressors and the pain and the discomfort that people go through, in the end, it's going to make you a healthier and better person. So even though mentally our brains may not be able to wrap our head around what's going on in our mind, we may have a lot of discouraging thoughts. Nothing's more discouraging to a person than themselves. And then in the day of technology today, we have people who do come in and post online horrible and hateful stuff to other people. I was watching another YouTuber. His name is Omar Gosh, and he does like paranormal stuff. I was watching him, and he was actually breaking down crying on the camera because somebody was going into this guy's neighborhood, posting up signs talking about how he's a fraud and he's hateful and all this other stuff. And I've never witnessed anything, and I don't know him personally or anything else like that. But at the same time, if you're comfortable about doing that, that really says something about a society. And we feel like because people put themselves out there, they're subject to more criticism. That may be true. But at the same time, I think we should probably just, yeah, my mom always told me, if you don't have anything nice, just don't say anything at all. It's pretty simple, right? It's a pretty simple rule. And I think with technology, we forget that. I don't like to talk bad about anybody. So oftentimes, if someone's talking to me about something, or if they ask me about somebody, if I don't have anything nice to say, I just won't talk about it, because I don't want to talk bad about anybody. It's not nice for me. I think it says a lot about you as a person. And then, I don't need to discredit anybody else. They can do that on their own, and they don't need any help. But anyway, so, as we get to the topic of enduring the hard times, you know who you are at the end of it. And we're constantly going through this phase of going through a hard time, coming out of the hard time. And if you were to take your entire life and plot it out on a graph, right? So you're like, okay, from a scale of -5 to +5, one being neutral, all your ups and your downs, right? Over the course of time, that would look like a heartbeat. And the heartbeat on a graph is good because in the medical world, a heartbeat on a graph means that you're alive. So the good news is that through this all, everything that you endure, it means you're alive and you're participating in life. If you have a flat line of your good times and your bad times, and they're all the same, then you're dead. There's nothing going on there. There's nothing happening. So if you're a leader and you see this going on when somebody else's life and they appear to be dead, they appear to just be skating through, give them a little defibrillator and a jolt of energy and help them out, help them through it. Sometimes they're not going to listen to you. Sometimes you just need to be there to listen to them and hear what they have to say. Sometimes listening is more powerful than saying anything at all. I don't know how many people have actually dealt with somebody who has lost, not really dealt with anybody. That's a horrible phrase. Anybody who has encountered somebody who has lost a loved one that's been really close to them. Unless you've lost a loved one, and even if you have, you don't know how that other person's feeling. So there's really nothing that you can say in that moment that's going to make that person feel any better or anything else. But yet inherently they're going to have a need to want to talk. And there's therapists out there for that. But as leaders in the workplace, there's going to be people who are going to want to bring their problems to you. And I've worked with some leaders who they don't want anybody to bring their problems to them because they're only work focused. They're only focused on, am I meeting my key objectives? Am I meeting my goals? Am I meeting the things that I need to make my job successful and the organization successful? And they overlook the human factor. So it's incredibly important that, as we are leaders and we have people who trust us enough to bring these problems to our attention and they seem to be flatlined in life and they're stuck in the moment, listening to somebody could be a perfect, way that you can revitalize them, because now as they're sharing that with you, they're also getting life back into themselves and they're thinking through the problem as they're sharing their problem with you. And sometimes there's going to be nothing that you can do. You just listen and you may provide some advice here and there. And if they don't listen, they don't listen. And there's nothing you could do about it. I would say, though, that if somebody is in a position where you invested a lot of time and energy in somebody and you feel like they just turned their back on you and you feel like, man, this person really did me wrong, even though I did so much for them. At the end of the day, you didn't get robbed of anything. If anything, you got blessed by that, because by pouring into somebody else and investing into somebody else, you also learn a lot more about yourself. And other people who are around you and on the outside looking in can look and they'll see, man, you know what? This person did nothing wrong. That other person just has an issue. So, with that, I would say go ahead and, feel what you got to feel, but then also take a step back and go, you know what? I did everything I could do. And this person, even though they chose to walk away and go a different route in life and choose another organization to work with, they're still better off for it. So you're still a part of their life. And no matter where they go, they're going to remember where they got their initial skills from. So I do want to take a brief moment to say thank you to, I think it's MCR Ab Tim, MCR. I don't know how to pronounce it, man, but thank you for joining in the room. And Sue's 11, thank you for being in here. And then Will from the Red Carpet, thank you for staying on here and supporting the show as well. If you haven't taken a moment, for any of you who just tuned into the show and listen, go ahead and if you like this podcast or you like what we're talking about, go ahead and subscribe. And then we also have a YouTube page and a Facebook page where we post stuff. So you just type in Tim stating the obvious and take a look at it there. I'm going to take a brief second to get some water because my voice is kind of raspy real quick, but take a moment and listen to this for a second. This is Tim Staten with Tim Stating the Obvious. What is this podcast about? It's simple. You are entitled to great leadership everywhere you go, whether it's to church, whether it's to work, whether it's at your house, you are entitled to great leadership. And so in this podcast, we take leadership principles and theories and turn them into everyday relatable and usable advice. Okay, so MOSDSK, you called in and that person ended. So if anybody else is on the line and you got a question or a comment or anything else about the topic that we're talking about, I'm here. We can interact with it. I know you're not just listening to the live show. You might just be listening to the live show just to say, hey, what is this guy talking about? What is this person about? What is this show is about? And honestly, the show is about providing everyday leadership and advice. And hopefully at the end of the show, you can, walk away and say, you know what, I got something that I can put in my own tool bag and incorporate that into my own leadership style. If you can, that's great. And if it reaches one person, that's awesome. If it reaches 3 or 4, that's good too. If it reaches nobody, I'll still do it because I just enjoy, putting good vibes and good positive stuff out there. So really, when you're talking about hard times and you're talking about enduring and getting through it, it definitely isn't. It definitely is uncomfortable in the moment. But at the same time, I've said this several times throughout the show, and I know it's getting repetitive, but you will definitely be better off for it. And so I saw that MOS DSK came back into the studio. I know you tried to call in. If you want to call back, you can. And Will, if there's anything on the story that you want to share, you're more than welcome to call in if you can. I know you're probably cutting hair right now in the middle of it, and you just paused and for a second and kind of looked at the phone. I was like, you know what, really? He's just going to call me out like this? Okay. He knows I'm cutting hair. He knows I'm booked up for the day. But that's all right. So I do appreciate everyone from tuning into the show. My podcast. Oh, Will, you called in. All right, man. Will, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Will, what's up?
Okay, man. Yeah, you definitely hit you definitely hit it on the head, man, and it definitely helped me out over here. I try to put it on the big speaker so everybody can hear it. Then they'll understand how it feels for me to be a leader or owner of the business and what I need them to do if somebody's slacking, and what I go through.
So Will, I would say then, with the people you do have there now, and I know you just went through that one incident this past couple weeks, but I would say for you as the owner, what is the most difficult thing that you have to deal with every day?
The inconsistency of people being in place on time or just not in position. That's
Oh,
hard.
okay. Yeah, I mean, so you would think, and this is just me looking on the outside in, right? So if I am a barber and and that's what I like to do, and that's my passion. So I'm going to show up to work every day. And I think most people use Booksy or they call in and they have different apps where they manage their own schedules. And
Yes,
then I
sir.
know that there's also probably like a walk-in base where like, hey, I need people to be here in case somebody does walk in. So with that, um, I would say that the people should be motivated enough to show up to work so they can get paid. No,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, yeah, it should be. It should be that way. Um, but I guess when you're your own boss and you make your own schedule, you forget about actually the business. They become like kind of selfish. Because if I come in every day and I'm completely booked up from 6:30 in the morning to 7 p.m., there's no way I should be even answering the phone or getting a walk-in. You try to train them up to be in spots or be in here when you're full. It's kind of hard. I don't know what people need for the day-to-day basis. If I knew that, then I probably would be better off.
So so I guess the question is you're saying that you don't know what the employees need on a day by day basis to be motivated to show up to work.
Yes, sir.
So I guess I would ask, besides them cutting their hair. Oh, 1 second, man. Hey, so I just muted you just for 1 second because it got kind of loud. But I would say, you know, what type of incentive do they have to show up, right? So one, they have the sheer monetary value of showing up. But two, I would say from a personal standpoint of pride in your own in their own work is how do we instill pride in people so that they want to be the best all the time because that's who they are. As a barber, I would assume, I don't know because I'm not one, you make your reputation based on every single haircut, based on every single interaction with the customer all the time. So if you have an off day, you're really going to have to up your game the next time and up your standpoint and your stance the next time, just so that you can earn the respect of that customer back. I know this personally, and I've talked to you about it. I will not I would rather get my hair cut by somebody who is less talented than a more talented person. I'm not saying that's the case now because, Will, you are super talented. I'm just saying in general. I would rather get my hair cut by somebody who is less talented but shows me more respect as a person and an individual and values me and my time. So I guess my question is for you in your organization, I would suggest probably how do we instill that personal sense of pride?
Uh, I don't know. That's what I'm listening for. I tried like if they get here early, I buy breakfast. I buy lunch. If they stay late, I buy dinner. If people come by selling like different types of products or equipment we could use, I buy them something. I just, you know, I go above and beyond, but I just can't get in the mind of some people. It's like they their own boss under contract under my business. So I'm trying to understand or figure out from others what I could do to get them here.
So just out of curiosity, what is your ratio to walk-ins versus appointment based?
Okay, everybody do appointments, but maybe maybe every 2 hours we'll get six people, six walk-ins. And every, every other hour, some of them guys have an appointment. As far as me being booked from 6:30 in the morning to 7 p.m. at night, sometimes I got to squeeze in a walk-in or two to pick up the slack so they don't walk out. So I mean,
Okay.
it's
So
kind of
so
there.
I would, this is just me just brainstorming here off the cuff here, but have you thought about a ratio for each of your employees to be like, okay, look, if you cut um outside of your appointments, if you cut, let's say you get like 9 walk-ins that day, whoever cuts the most of those walk-ins gets a certain percentage at a bonus at the end of the day.
Oh, that sounds good. You know what?
So
That's
so now so now that would be incentivizing. I got my normal customers that I'm going to take care of, but now I'm also incentivizing the walk-in customer as well, because I have a personal invested interest in cutting as many walk-ins as possible, because I know at the end of the day I'm going to get a little bit of a bonus. And then if you track that, that might help your walk-ins.
That's I never even thought of that. I'm thinking of everything else when I should have. That make good sense.
So I mean, that was just something that I was just thinking about at the top of my head, because I know sometimes that when as we look at businesses, and I just finished my Lean Six Sigma black belt course, so I kind of look at everything through a different lens now, because this actual course was super beneficial, and knowing analytics and data. And if I'm looking at specific data pieces that I want to improve, I have to incentivize those data points, so that way I get the most out of that.
Okay. That's what I needed. And I gotta get back to this chair, but I'm still gonna be listening, okay, Mr. Chin?
All right. No, thanks for calling in. I
All right,
appreciate it.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. I'm gonna still be listening.
All right.
All right.
Hey, Will. So thanks for calling into the show. Um, so, as we're talking about enduring the hard times, when you take a look at businesses too, right? Businesses go through ebb and flows. They also have heartbeats. The other thing to take a look at with that is, what are your objectives of your organization? So if you're taking a look at the objectives and the key performance goals of that organization, let's say the goal is to grow the business by 5% for next year. Well, what does that mean? So, you have to clearly identify what you're looking for. You have to look at all the data factors that plug into what makes your organization tick, what your competition looks like, and then also, what does the end customer want? What is the customer looking for from you, and are you meeting those customers' needs? And I would say, if you find a decline in that flow of what you're looking for, you're not meeting your customers' needs. You're going to have to take a look at the data point and say, okay, I'm going to fix, these areas, because the data shows that if I improve in these areas, then my profitability is going to also increase. And that's just kind of like the general basic terms of, a little bit of analysis on that. But, definitely what I do is, if I'm ever finding an area where I'm having a hard time motivating people to get to a certain performance level, I look at, maybe money is not right there. Maybe money's not right, the right thing to help motivate people, because sometimes they're just like, hey, I'm good with what I got. Maybe it's more time off. Maybe it is training and education. Maybe people are looking to get more educated and more trained in a specific skill set. So if I incentivize that and say, okay, well, if you improve on customer service, on the help desk by 20%, and when I mean by improve, I'm talking about your customer service satisfaction surveys and results, your CSATs. When we take a look at that, the more I get back from that, and by each individual, I can say, okay, I will pay for this course, or we'll send you to this class, or we'll go ahead and give you this much time off. Because, as people go through hard times, sometimes they don't need more money. Sometimes they just need time to think and decompress and, just kind of breathe. So, just spitballing it here. That's kind of like my take on that. And we're coming up on the 40-minute mark, and this is way longer than I intended it to go. I didn't think it was actually going to last that long. So for everybody who tuned in and listened to the podcast, I really appreciate you tuning in and taking a look at it. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you want to take a look at some of the canned, more scripted shows, please go ahead and do that. And if you're listening to this and you're not on Podbean, then you're probably listening to it on the Google App Store, or you're listening to it on the Apple Podcast Store, or you could be listening to it on YouTube or on Facebook. So all those places are the places where we like to post content and just really, get a little bit back out there. So one of the most recent videos we did were like the best email methods, and which is better for productivity? Do you like analog or digital products? So if those are topics that you're interested in, you can find them there. Lastly, I really am interested about your stories and what you have to say. So any topic that you want to talk about, let me know and I'll put it on the show. Like Will, this morning we talked about it. It just happened to be related to what we were talking about today. And I actually planned this episode not to go live, but to talk about this topic. I actually planned this 8 months ago that I was going to talk about it this weekend. So that's kind of interesting how everything comes together, and everything happens for a reason. Again, tying into hard times, everything happens for a reason. It defines you of who you are as a person. It lets you know who you are as a person, and it lets you know what you can go through.